Good morning everyone. Welcome to PUC Online Classroom. Today I am going to continue Unit 11, Grammar, Past, Passive. This is the first activity that we're going to focus on. So let's get it started. The passive voice, you can say passive voice, places the focus of a sentence on the receiver of an action instead of the doer of the action. So what does it mean by saying the receiver and the doer? So the receiver refers to an object and the doer refers to the subject, someone or people who perform the action. All right. So we just want to change the focus. For example, right here, fans downloaded over a million albums. As you can see, over a million albums is an object and fan is the subject. And if we focus on this sentence, it is an active, but it's in a passive form. And when you write something or when you say something like this, the main focus is the doer, all right, the performers. So right here, fans, but we want to change the focus of the sentence by using passive. As you can see right here, passive voice, passive be, past participle. Okay, so as you can see right here, it is an object, and when it becomes a passive voice, it will be a subject. Okay, over a million albums, and then according to the form, passive be, were, and downloaded. Don't worry, I will go further about this form, but I just want you to know that active, we use object right here. All right, so it means that we focus on the object in a passive, but object right here in active, it means nothing, or let's say the receiver. Okay, and the most important thing in an active is the doer. Okay, and passive, we change the focus by using the object right here and put it in the subject right here in a passive way. Okay, and I will explain a little bit more, but just want to tell you exactly what passive is. Okay, let's continue reading this. Use the passive voice when the doer of the action is not important or is not known. Okay, so we use passive voice when the doer of the action is not known. It means that you don't know the person who performs the action. All right, so we can use passive. As you can see the example right here, the game was released in 2008, but who released the game in 2008? So we don't want to focus on a doer, we want to focus on a receiver. So passive is used right here. Okay, whenever we don't know the subject, or whenever the subject or the person is not important enough. And continue. When the doer of the action is important to know, use the passive voice with by. Okay, the first rap recording was made by, okay, blah blah blah, okay, this person. So it is very specific. So whenever the name is very specific, like the Sugar Hill Gangs, so you can say goodbye right here. Okay, but when we don't know the name, just like this example, it is not known or it's not important, then we don't need to use by. But when we use by, when the name is, or the person or the performer, a doer, is clear enough. Even though you don't know this person, it doesn't mean that it's not clear, it's specific. Okay, so we use by. So let's go further about this passive. I have forms right here, so you can see right here we have active voice and passive voice. And usually when it comes to active, we usually have the three elements: subject, verb, and object. Verb right here, it doesn't mean that it's only particular form. You can use any form, any tenses right here. Okay, it can be a negative, it can be a positive, it can be present or past. But in this lesson we're going to focus on past simple, passive. Okay, but let me explain the other tenses as well. Maybe you want to understand much better about the other tenses. So when it comes to passive voice, you got to change object right here in an active to a subject and a passive. Okay, and in order to form a passive, you got to add to be right here, and we'll tell you how to use to be right here. And the verb right here, let me fix the arrow a little bit. That should be verb right here. Okay, so the main verb right here will become verb 3, or you can say past participle. All right, and the subject will be an object in a passive. We use by or not, it depends. I explained a little bit earlier, but but I will explain one more time, okay, by giving you more examples with that. So let's talk about to be right here, because to be is very important, okay. So if the verb right here in an active is present, to be here you have to use am, is, or are. Understand that? If this is present verb, the verb in the present tense, then to be here is am, is, or are. It depends on the subject right here. And if the verb right here is in the present perfect simple, then to be here is has or have been. Okay. If the verb here is past simple, then to be here must be was or were. Okay, was or were. This is about the grammar point that we are learning today. And if this one is past perfect, to be here is had been. Okay, so we don't make any other changes. So there are only two changes for the verbs right here. One is a tense and the other one is a verb. So the verb need to be what, 3, and the tense need to be right here. So we have to change according to the tense. If to be right here is present, it means that the verb right here is present. Okay, so it means that, so we change to be according to the tense of the verb, and we change the main verb right here to verb 3. Okay, let's see the example. The company employs 200 people. So 200 people is an object, employee is a verb, the company is a subject. So you can see these 3 elements because they are important. So 200 are employed. Why are? Because 200. And we use, why use present? Because it is present simple right here. Okay, employed. And then we change the word employed to employed. So verb 3. Okay. The court selected my sister for the jury. And so my jury, sorry, my sister is an object. Then when it comes to passive, then the object will be a subject according to the form right here. You can see an arrow, object will be a subject. So my sister, and why was? Because was is selected. Was is selected by the court of for the jury. So it means that it is simple past right here. And why was? Because sister is only one. Then you have to use was. Okay, why past simple? Because it is selected. It is past simple. Then so that you can see was selected right here. Okay, and I will explain whether you have by or without by later. Mira has painted. Okay, as you can see, my room. So my room is an object. Has painted is present perfect. And my room has been painted. Okay, so we change to has been because it is present perfect according to the form right here. Then you have to use present perfect. And why it is has? Because only one room. Then you have to use has. And we have by Mira. Okay, I will explain why later. And this is last one is past perfect. Rata had printed this report. Then you can say this report had been printed by Rata. Okay, so as you can see the form, if it is past perfect, then you have to use past perfect had been. Okay, and then later you can use verb 3 right here, which is a main verb in a sentence. Okay, so let's go to note a little bit. We use by phrase. This is by phrase, by Rata, by Mirar, by the court, by the company. Okay, so we use by phrase when the subject in an active sentence is specific or known. This is like in this book. All right, so you can see right here. So we use, sorry, right here. When the doer of an action is important to know, use passive voice with by. So it's like this person is very clear, then we have to use by. It's similar to this one. So when the subject is specific, we use by. Unknown, we use by, or important. And we don't use by, everybody. We don't use by when the subject in an active is not specific. Okay, for example, people or someone, we don't know who they are, so we don't use. Okay, for example, right here, someone stole my pen, and then you can say my pen was stolen, and we don't say by someone. Why? Because we don't know someone. Okay, we don't know who he or she is. That is the reason why we don't use by. Understand that? But if I say Dara stole my pen, then you can say my pen was stolen by Dara. Okay, because Dara is very specific, then you have to use by. However, when we use someone right here, because we don't know, then we don't use by. Okay. And the last note, We cannot form a passive if the verb in the active sentence is in an intransitive verb. Intransitive verb is the verb doesn't need an object. So why is like that? So for example, the baby cries. So we don't have an object right here, right? So we cannot form a passive because passive, look at it, the subject in a passive is the object from an active. So what if the sentence in an active doesn't have an object? We don't have an object. So how come we form a passive? It is impossible, right? The baby cries. Cry what? Okay, it doesn't have an object. So that's why we call the verb cries is intransitive verb. The verb doesn't need an object. I run in the morning with my friends. So run, run nothing. Okay, so it's also intransitive verb. It cannot form a passive. Again, because it doesn't have an object. So without an object, suppose that this sentence doesn't have an object. So in order to form passive, we need this object to form a subject in a passive. If we don't have this, we cannot form a subject in a passive at all. All right. So you have to take a look at the sentence carefully, especially the verb. Okay. So below is your practice. So you can do these two parts. Okay, which is your homework. And when you finish this one, I also would like you to try this as well. Okay, exercise in the book. So what you need to do is to use past passive, okay, to fill in this item, okay, with the verb given right here. And for part B, you have to write, okay, you have to write in order to change this sentence to passive, okay. And remember, some are specific, especially the subject, and some are not, okay. As you can see right here, many people we don't know, it's not clear enough, so we don't use by. Okay, Paul McCanney is pretty clear, even though you don't know him or her. Of course, it is clear enough. So your job is to do this two exercise and also the handout in the exercise in the handout as well. Okay. So if you have any questions, everybody, please leave your question in the comment below. All right. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you. Goodbye.